was leader of the opposition, I led the opposition political actors, not in Parliament alone, but even outside Parliament, in a two-day conversation about the possibilities for change, what change has and what it takes, and what we needed to do as the opposition to have a chance of causing the desirable change that we thought we are capable of doing. In those 2 days, we made deep reflections of our past failures, of our first trials, the several steps and missteps, the missed opportunities, and we dared to dream. But there was something missing, and we were addressing the elephant in the room: reforms. You recollect that there never was consensus on that day. The minimum to a consensus was that let each group return to their fore and do internal consultation. Probably at the right time, there will be an opportunity to reconvene and address these matters. And you recollect that my party, the NUP, then was even more bold in talking about reforms, in saying it's not necessary. Even a statement was issued by the president to that effect. But we said there will be chance. We thought that we'll have occasion to address this in earnest before the elections. This is September 2024, and the Electoral Commission has issued a roadmap. In fact, has started implementing its roadmap. In the 10th Parliament, to which I was a part, the opposition attempted to bring reforms, electoral reforms and constitutional amendments, because sometimes amendments give rise to several amendments of other acts and attendant reforms. Those reforms were being led by the Honorable Nwagaba, and were told we were late. But we were promised instead that within that time we shall have constituted a review commission. In the same 10th Parliament, you recollect that there was an attempt to present names. In fact, names were forwarded to Parliament. But then it was stopped. The process stopped. So there was no commission. So we never had a Constitutional Review Commission. We've never had reforms. We all recollect the nature of the 2021 elections and how they actually were a major setback in our process of democratizing Uganda and propelling a durable constitutional order in this country. The probability of having won based on the last election is second to none. Therefore, I set out, because I've been consulting across peers, actors, individuals, about the possibility of reforms. And when we saw nothing coming from government, of course, my old friend Hon.Mpuuga has been speaking often at funerals, in other spaces, on media, about how he intends to bring, reforms. But the fact that we have not had a review commission, it means that the public has never sent him out. So if he brings any, he'll be bringing his own and his own cohorts, amendments or reforms. I have set out, and I'll be joined by other colleagues in the coming weeks to set out on a process, on a program, to bring to Parliament a plethora of amendment bills that will give way to a national conversation on the possibility. You recollect last week, no, this week actually, on Tuesday, I gave Parliament an oral notice of my intentions. And I promised the country that next week I'll be ready with the first set of my intentions. So next week coming, I'll be able to now formally seek from the Speaker, with the way of a written notice, to seek leave of Parliament to be able to sponsor a number of bills that will catapult a conversation on possible constitutional amendments and major electoral reforms that, in my view and the view of those I've been consulting with, that will give way to a national conversation, to a better election that can give an idea of a free and fair process. There are three major areas of interest from me in the Constitution. Remember, the Constitution in Article 260, 261, and 262 can be variously amended. So if Parliament allows me, I intend to propose to amend the Constitution with three bills. The first bill will be under Article 260. Article 260 talks about the articles that can be amended with the Parliament and a referendum. The second will be under Article 261, the second bill, those areas that can be amended by Parliament and local governments, district local governments. Then the third bill will be about those areas that can be amended by Parliament alone. My view, which is not a final view, is that if I bring three bills in that structure and form, then we shall be able to take care of the naysayers, those who say we don't have time, because Parliament has time. Local governments have time. If there's no time for a referendum, that there's a question that requires a referendum, then in my proposal, I'll propose that on polling day in 2026, there will be about a box for a referendum question, such that we can save time and resources. Then the government that will be formed will implement the results of the referendum. So that's why I'm proposing three bills for amending the Constitution. So when those bills are taken, maybe I could briefly speak about the key areas of amendment. One of the key areas for the Constitution amendment is restoration of term limits. We've spoken about that variously. It's something that I think has bedeviled this nation. Term limits were the minimum consensus of the 1995 Constitution. Remember, the predicate of that Constitution was to give this country a chance for the very first time in our history to change leadership through a free and fair process. Because the major failure of the 1967 Constitution was failure to enable the country to transition, to organize free and fair elections, transition from one leader to another. That never happened. So the promise of the 1995 Constitution was the possibility of a change through a free and fair election. When that failed, and in 2006, we amended the Constitution and removed term limits, that in effect killed that motivation. It killed the basic structure of that Constitution, and therefore, in my view, as a lawyer and as a politician, from that day we got a new Constitution, which is why it needs a major surgery to restore that promise and give the nation hope that we can actually change leadership. Otherwise, peaceful transfer of power is impossible. And in 2018, again, we tinkered with the constitution and removed another pillar, which was the age limit. So for me, we need to restore term limits and even entrench them, not just restore, but entrench them. Because the article that had them was fair weather, Article 105. Now we need to restore them and then even entrench them. The second area I'm looking at in amending the Constitution that will cause amendment to the Presidential Elections Act, the Parliamentary Elections Act, the Electoral Commissions Act, will be in the area. I'm introducing an idea to have a second tier of Parliament, the upper house. And the upper house will be chaired by a deputy president, who in my proposal will be on the ballot with the president. The idea of a president simply appointing a vice president to attend the funerals must stop. We must have a constitutional provision for a deputy president elected on the same day with the president. And I'm proposing the president and the deputy should not come from the same region. We'll chair the upper house, and the upper house, like I'll propose later in detail, will have only 39 members from the original 39 districts before the making of the 95 Constitution. I'll make provision for their purpose and role for the country. Then most importantly, and probably dicey, is reducing the size of Parliament. We're among a Bani forest where it is domiciled. I'm looking at the bigger picture. I'm a Ugandan, desirous of seeing this country transition and move to a better place. The size of Parliament over time has been a major concern for all and sundry, including politicians who care. I am proposing that instead of having county MPs, we shall have a directly elected member of Parliament for each district. Can be a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. So currently you'll have only 146 directly elected members of Parliament. Okay? Then we shall retain the women members of Parliament. So then you'll have 146 plus 146 plus 10 from the cities. But also I'm proposing that the women members of Parliament should be elected by proportional representation. I'm going to put all these ideas in writing and you'll be able to read them and explain to the country. I want us to test the idea of having Parliament in a hybrid manner, whereas the direct seats from the district will be elected by universal adult suffrage, the way we do it now, first past the post. For women MPs, I want us to test proportional representation, where for every party that has gotten a vote and in Parliament, they will have a chance to have a woman MP in Parliament. If you are NUP and you get 50% of the national vote, you should have 50% of the women in Parliament. If you are JEMA and you get 10%, I'm not saying JEMA is worth 10%, don't get me wrong. They should have 10% of women in Parliament. That is the idea of national building, that you even introduce through legislation power sharing in Parliament. Because the idea of winner takes all disenfranchises politics, makes it a game of eaters, a game of the powerful. You know? So those proposals and more to take care of the size of Parliament. The size will be small, but even more representative of the political views in the country. So that is my proposal on Parliament. So for the Constitution, there are other ideas I cannot speak about now, they are lengthy, but that's what I will do. There will be amendments. I'm also proposing amendments subsequently, because of the constitutional amendments, to the Presidential Elections Act. to take care of the issues that will arise from amending the Constitution. But maybe, very critical, in the Presidential Elections Act, I want us to amend two critical areas. One, in amending the, remember in 2018, we made an amendment to the Constitution to say that if a candidate is aggrieved after a presidential election, they can go to court. And we enlarge the time available for the candidate to go to court. Okay? Of course, we reduce the appetite of having very little time, and therefore the impossibility of getting to court prepared by enlarging the time available. Now, if you want to take care of the malfeasance that comes with, for example, arresting a candidate, remember the Honorable Kyagulanyi was held indoors under house arrest when he was supposed to go to court. Dr. Besigye in 2016 was held at his residence, was supposed to petition. I want us to amend the Constitution further and the Presidential Elections Act to say that even a registered voter can petition court. Okay? Such that the appetite to arrest or detain would-be complainants reduces. Of course, that will come with other issues. I'm proposing, for example, if you're a voter and you want to petition, you must do a security deposit to court, that you don't simply go to petition to waste court's time. It is done in our civil proceedings. So it will not be a new thing in our jurisprudence. That is for petitions. Then secondly, the declaration of results legislation. Right now, when you vote for the president, you see, we vote the president and the members of parliament on the same day. In Masaka City, by 6 o'clock, you will have an MP declared, but no president is declared as having won Masaka. So I want us to change the law, because the same returning officer who declares members of parliament can also declare a winning president for a district. And that is closed and the certificate is issued. And what would remain is transmission of results electronically or otherwise to the national center. Meaning that if you're a candidate for president, you don't have to have heartache and ulcers over listening to results from Karamoja when the ones from Kawempe have not yet been read. All you have to collect are 146 DR forms of every district, and you'll know the results declared, probably plus the 10 from the cities. So the declaration of results component is problematic. I doubt anybody sane and sensible will reject that possibility, that we change that, such that, because you have a woman MP declared for the district, that same returning officer has all the results from the district for everybody, including the president. They should be declared there and then. That amendment should come. Then for the Elections Electoral Commission's Amendment Act, I said for all these, there will be a series of consequential amendments of other legislations. The Presidential Elections Act, Parliamentary Elections Act, and the Electoral Commission's Act. Two areas of concern for me to the Electoral Commission's Act. One is amending that act to make provision for diaspora voters. We have over 4 million Ugandans scattered across the diaspora, in estimate. And of the 4, close to 2 million are eligible of voting. I think Uganda has about 44, 45 embassies and missions scattered across. These should be polling centers. Remember, in 2021, the High Court decreed in a matter of Karari Stephen versus Attorney General and Electoral Commission Justice Lydia Mugambe decreed that it was unconstitutional not to make provision for people in the diaspora to vote. She also decreed that it was also unconstitutional not to make provision for prisoners to vote. So I want to propose amendments to the Electoral Commission's Act to make way for the possibility of diaspora people and prisoners to vote. All that was missing is how would they vote? It's not new. They vote in Kenya, they vote in Zambia, they vote in South Africa, in so many other jurisdictions. So we should not be lazy. We should be proactive. It is their right to vote. For example, the people in the diaspora contribute more money through remittances to the country than Uganda's biggest export, which is coffee. So how do you disenfranchise a people that actually sustain the economy to that extent? So Parliament should rise to the occasion and proceed to make provision for the voting of diaspora people and prisoners. Yes, when you're in a prison, certain rights are curtailed, but civic rights cannot be curtailed. There are those that can be curtailed. I'm aware that actually in some countries, even conjugal rights are made provision for. Let's begin with civic rights. For starters, the right to vote. So these are very key issues to which I want the country to begin a conversation and make a decision. I want to invite you, when I'm ready next week, I'll lay and share with the country these amendment bills. They may not come on the same day because it's rigorous work. It's rigorous work, it's vigorous. And in the event that Mr. Mao and others have their own bills, we shall meet in the Committee of Parliament and see what they have. There's no contradiction. The job of a member of Parliament, the first call for any member of Parliament is to make laws for the good governance of the country. And this is the call I'm here for. And I want to invite colleagues, members of Parliament, to join me in this call. And I hope from both sides of the House, we should be able to hear from each other and speak to each other about these possibilities. I thank you.
I know some people want Uganda, but maybe you can.
Block endorsing me or whatever it means. I'll have this to say. First of all, I warmly appreciate the kindness of these my old comrades for believing that I am capable of being up there. It's not something I can apologize for. All I can say is that there are so many other Ugandans capable of offering leadership at a higher level. And my humble view is that let's first concentrate on creating an environment that makes it possible for leaders to emerge and compete favorably beyond the self-interest and our desires to be on the ballot paper. It should not be casual. It should not be really a ritual. It should be a serious endeavor. I appreciate them. I will encourage them when I meet them that we can put a lot of energy on these issues, make it possible for a change to happen. Then I have no doubt in my mind that we shall have an opportunity as the opposition, for example, to sit in a quorum like this and agree on our best foot forward and our best bet when time comes. That's what I can say about that. For politicians, something I didn't talk about because I thought when I share with the public my written document, people will be able to see my expanded views on governance. One of the proposals for constitutional amendment is to activate the provisions in Schedule 5 of the Constitution that talks about regional governments. when you form regional governments, some of the questions that arise at the center will go to the regions. What's wrong with the country not discussing a possibility of power sharing through advanced devolution? You can call it federalism, you can call it anything else. Once we devolve power from the center to the regions, because probably I will ask a question to the Minister of Local Government in Parliament. What happened to activating Schedule 5 in the Constitution that talks about regional governments? This can take care of some of the problem. I want people to go to their local regions and where possible, have a debate in their vernaculars. There's nothing wrong. And where documents have to be discussed or synthesized in a foreign language, it should be done. But I don't want to say that qualifications are the problem. Okay? Of course, if you are qualified, ordinarily, if you choose to do wrong, it's deliberate, because you know. You have seen professors fail to do mundane things. So, but I know Ugandans are capable, for example, of deciding, of electing who is capable of being in an upper chamber, in a district council, in a sub-county council. They know all that. I don't want to take away that right, because policies should create room for involvement and participation. And then if people are sensitized well, if the civic education and civic competence rises, then I have no doubt citizens won't put square pegs in round holes. They'll put people where they belong. The Mnyonyo conversation, and then majority of opposition don't want. Do you have a census of the majority, my brother? No. I'm not referring to that. You said majority of the opposition don't want reforms, and I was asking, do you have a census? Political leaders. Political leaders are various. Probably a few of us have a microphone to speak. But if you moved out there and spoke to political actors, they're desirous of these reforms. But I'm not blind to the frustration of the political leaders at a higher level. The frustration is obvious because we have had run-ins with the system, the unwillingness to climb down their high horse, to listen to citizens, to listen to their opponents. It's understandable. But tell me, so if you don't want to do this, so where do you want us to go? Are you for armed rebellion? Are you for civil disobedience? Then go for it. The one thing I will not do is simply look on and wait for somebody to come from nowhere and do what I don't know. In my space, I'm only doing what I know. And it's my job to speak convincingly, to speak to the other party, to see a bigger call for national building. I can't run scared that they won't listen. So why am I in Parliament? If I'm convinced they cannot listen, so why am I here then? I should stay away. It's my daily duty to speak to people who don't want to listen to me, to compel them to listen to me by raising the bar of the issues, vacate the mundane issues, and then speak to the issues that can sustain our younger democracy and give a possibility of a durable constitutional order. It's my job. Whether we believe they won't listen, probably. Because this conversation is not a conversation of politicians alone, and that's the danger. These issues are not issues of politicians alone. Civil society, cultural institutions, religious institutions, even witch doctors must participate in this conversation. This is the conversation of citizens for better governance. It's not a preserve of politicians. Politicians have a duty to lead. They have an obligation to be honest about possibilities. I'm only doing what I believe is feasible. Let the conversation ensue. Let's begin it. If somebody has a higher and better way and a shortcut, I'll join them. Then, Vincent, I think I was elaborate. Probably didn't follow me well. The reference to the upper house is akin to a senate. And the 146 times 2 is the ordinary parliament where I belong now. Okay? That will be the lower house. And if you have 146 from the districts, and then the 146 women, plus 10 or thereabout from the cities, that's almost, you get the 550 something we are, you'll make a saving over 200 MPs. In my proposal, I'm even offering a proposal on compensating those that will lose their seats or constituencies. I have a detailed proposal on how those that will surrender their constituency will be compensated to leave and give way for the country to progress. It is a cost, but a cost, a one-off, and then we shall progress with this a leaner and feasible parliament. In fact, in the Constitution, the proposal in the Constitutional Amendment, I want the numbers to be entrenched in the Constitution. To say we shall have a lower house of 300 members of Parliament, sealed. The danger is, every time you create a district, you enlarge Parliament. Parliament should never be allowed to enlarge itself at will. There must be a limit, and that limit should be in the Constitution. With a seal, the numbers must be there. Right now, we don't have